Incredible moment. Black woman SEAL sniper arrested 5 minutes later. An Admiral's unexpected arrival. The sun cast a warm glow over Maywood, a tight-knit suburb where everyone knew each other's name. The peaceful afternoon was shattered when a group of teenagers, decked out in designer clothes, swaggered past. Their laughter echoed like thunder, but the lightning was their words. "Look at those kids. Bet they don't even know who their dad is." Watching from her father's mechanic shop, Jada felt her heart drop. Maya and Malik, her spirited children, stared back at their tormentors, their little faces frozen in shock. The harshness of the world lit a fire within her. Jada was a former Navy SEAL sniper, tough, unyielding, but in that moment, all she could think about were her kids. With a grit honed from danger and sacrifice, she stepped outside. "Leave them alone," she barked, her voice sharp and commanding. The shockwaves of anger radiated through her. How dare they? But the boys didn't step back. Instead, they laughed, their privilege shining in the afternoon sun. Words escalated into shoving, and before she knew it, chaos erupted. Jada stood tall, protecting her children as the crowd grew. In that tense moment, she felt the weight of the world and the burden of expectation. Then came the sirens, the whir of authority slicing through her indignation, blurring reality. Handcuffs locked around her wrists, Jada gasped. The bystanders watched, some with confusion, others with outrage. Who could have imagined a mother defending her children would be treated like a criminal? "Jada!" A voice cried out. It was her father, his brow furrowed with worry. Admiral Carter, the town's esteemed leader, emerged from the crowd, his eyes fierce with purpose. "What is happening here?" Whispers filled the air as eyes darted back and forth. Admiral Carter had seen Jada's sacrifice, her tireless work ethic. "This woman served our country," he asserted, his voice steady and booming. "She deserves respect, not ridicule." As tensions flared, Jada could feel the eyes of her neighbors, some shamed, others intrigued, digging deeper into her soul. "What kind of justice is this?" One voice trembled. "She's just a mother protecting her kids." Caught in a storm of conflicting emotions, Jada faced down prejudice, feeling its weight heavy on her chest. The community she loved had turned upside down. Her father recalled the strength of ancestors who fought for justice, each sacrifice now feeling like a shadow looming over his daughter. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The crowd was restless, the air thick with uncertainty. Admiral Carter's face softened as he assessed the shift in the community. Would this moment fracture their collective identity, or could it unite them? Jada's heart raced, pumping resolve through her veins. She wouldn't back down. As the men of authority leaned in to make choices, Jada breathed in the scent of oil and gasoline, mingling with the potency of anger and hope. It was in that silence that change could spark, as the people of Maywood stood on the precipice of something profound. Would they finally learn to see beyond color and circumstance? A collective anticipation filled the air, and everyone awaited the Admiral's next words, sensing that whatever came next might redefine their beloved town forever. The crowd instinctively leaned in, tension thickening the air like haze before a summer storm. Admiral Carter met Jada's gaze, and in that brief, electrifying moment, she felt the weight of an entire community's eyes flickering between expectations and reality. He was their leader, but could he navigate this chaos? "Jada," he said, his voice firm but warm, "we can't let this escalate into something worse. You're not a criminal, you're a hero." His words seemed to ripple through the crowd, an unexpected anchor in the tumult. Then a young man stepped forward. "What she did was wrong. You can't fight fire with fire," he shouted, the arrogance in his voice puncturing the moment. Another voice chimed in. "But she was protecting her kids. It's what any good mother would do." Debate ignited among the onlookers. Side conversations spilled over, whispers of discontent mixed with calls for justice. The scene morphed from a confrontation to a community forum, all circling around a reckoning they didn't know they needed. As the voices rose and fell, Jada felt the handcuffs biting at her wrists, a tangible reminder of how quickly the world could turn. But alongside that pain was something softer, the fierce support radiating from those who knew her story, those who understood what she sacrificed for her family. "Jada, speak," Admiral Carter urged, motioning for the crowd to listen. Each breath she took was heavy with the gravity of the moment. She glanced at her children, their faces a mix of fear and hope, and suddenly, she felt an overwhelming surge of courage. "I'm not just a mother. I'm a mother who has fought for this country, for my children, and for justice." The air crackled with her declaration. "This isn't just about me. It's about everyone who feels powerless against the tide of prejudice. We've all fought our battles in our homes, on our streets, in our hearts. So why should I stand alone?" A murmur of agreement washed over the crowd, the seeds of solidarity beginning to plant themselves in the soil of discontent. A woman stepped forward, a local teacher whose face Jada recognized. "I've been scared to speak up too, but this is bigger than just one incident. If we want to be a community, we need to stand together, not against each other." Cheers broke out, echoing off the walls of Maywood as more voices joined in, declaring their support. Jada felt a swell of hope blossoming within her, wrapping her like a warm blanket on a cold night. Perhaps they could forge something new out of the ashes of that clash. But just as it seemed like a turning point, the police officer who had arrested her stepped forward. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we have to proceed with protocol." The shackles dug deeper into Jada's skin, and her heart plummeted. The moment she had hoped could shift her life and her town was slipping through her fingers. The crowd reacted with gasps and murmurs of concern. "Wait." Admiral Carter spoke again, his authority resonating in the charged atmosphere. "Let us take a step back. We can handle this differently. We need to engage in discussions, not just actions. Let us seek real accountability." Hope flickered again, but the situation still brewed with potential for chaos. Jada glanced at her father, his expression a mixture of pride and concern, and then back at her children, who looked so small yet so fierce. Would they see beyond the struggle into a future full of possibilities? The crowd held their collective breath, waiting for the Admiral to conclude. "If we could turn this moment into a dialogue, what might we achieve? How would we unite instead of divide?" As he posed that question, Jada could feel the stirrings of a movement rising in that small town. The horizon ahead felt laden with both uncertainty and possibility. Would it be enough to break the chains that bound them all? A tension settled, and the future hung delicately in the balance, ready for someone to tip the scales. Would Jada's fight ignite a change that could reshape their town? Admiral Carter stepped forward, raising his hand to quiet the crowd. The buzz dissolved into nervous whispers, everyone hanging onto his next word. Jada felt the moment stretch like a taut string, threatening to snap. She could see the mixed emotions playing on the faces around her: anger, sympathy, confusion. Jada's actions were born from a desire to protect her family. He continued, voice steady. "In times like these, our community must come together, not fall apart. We cannot allow fear to define us." The weight of his words sank deep into Jada's chest, but another voice cut through, sharp as glass. "What if she gets off scot-free? What happens to the rules we've set?" A man in the back shouted, his fists clenched, uncertainty spilling over like a glass tipped too far. "It's not about getting off, it's about understanding." Another woman countered, her eyes bright with determination. "It's about compassion in our judgments. If we only see her as a criminal, we're missing the bigger picture." The exchanges grew heated, voices clashing, as Jada stood at the center of it all, her heart racing. Every shout, every plea was laced with layers of personal stories, lives being woven into the fabric of a community that felt at risk of unraveling. She realized this wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everyone who had felt pushed aside, ignored, or silenced. "Look," Jada took a shaky breath, "I am scared. I am scared of losing my kids, my freedom, and any chance of bringing positivity into our lives. But I am not ashamed to fight. Not anymore." The crowd absorbed her words, a murmur of empathy washing across the group like a tide. She could see them beginning to look at her, not just as a mother caught in a storm, but as a woman willing to stand up for her beliefs. "I'm asking for your help," Jada continued, feeling a flame ignite in her. Help me show them that we're not going to take this lying down. Let us unite. Let us allow this moment to rebuild something stronger. I don't know how, but we can find a way. In that moment, several individuals stepped forward, courage flowering like blossoms after a long winter. A young father, holding his daughter's hand, declared, "We're with you." A woman in a bright scarf nodded, "We need to face this together." Each new voice added fuel to the fire already raging within Jada. The call for unity rang clear, rippling through the packed square as hands began to raise, fists raised high, a collective stand being formed. But then, as if on cue, police sirens whirred in the distance, drawing closer, reminding everyone of the thin line they stood upon. The cheers began to falter, concern gnawing at the edges of their resolve. Jada's hope flickered like a candle in the wind. Would it be enough? Admiral Carter noticed the worried faces. We can't let fear divide us. We have to show them that dialogue is stronger than force. We need to stay united. As he spoke, Jada's heart beat in rhythm with the crowd's rising energy. She could feel transformation in the air, hesitation fading into a newfound strength. The police arrived, eyes scanning the crowd, ready to intervene. Jada could hear the tension crawling back in, like a shadow creeping across the sunlit ground. Are we willing to risk it all for change? Jada called out, her voice echoing with urgency. If not us, then who? A chorus of yes erupted, crashing like waves against a shore. But there was still wrapped uncertainty. How far could they go? How much could they withstand? With the police on the scene, the defining moment was at hand, teetering on the brink of chaos. What would happen next when the lines were drawn and the fears materialized before them? Would courage prevail, or would confrontation erupt in a way no one anticipated? The atmosphere crackled with tension as the police stepped from their vehicles, blue and red lights flashing in stark contrast against the warm orange glow of the setting sun. Jada could see their faces, stoic and unyielding, but that didn't deter her. She felt a wave of responsibility wash over her, deeper than anything she had faced before. This was now beyond her. This was about every soul struggling in this community. Stand firm, she shouted, her voice strong, piercing through the murmurs of uncertainty that wound around them. They are here because they are afraid, just like us. But we can show them we're not the enemy. The crowd shifted, some exchanging nervous glances while others clenched their fists tighter. Jada sensed fear bubbling just beneath the surface, but under that fear, she caught glimpses of determination lighting up their eyes. They needed a leader, someone to guide them through this confusing moment. And somehow, she knew it had to be her. Look at the person next to you, Jada urged, her heart racing as she reached out to touch the man beside her, a stranger turned ally in this surreal moment. Look at us. We are more than just individuals, we're a community. Together, we are strong. People turned to each other, their expressions shifting from fear to solidarity. Hands found hands. Hearts began to synchronize. Jada felt the pulse of unity warming the air, a fierce energy that refused to be extinguished. But the police stepped closer, their tactical gear gleaming ominously. Move back. This is a warning. A stern voice barked through the growing chaos. Listen, Admiral Carter shouted, stepping forward again, we don't want violence. We want to talk. We're here to protect our community, not to provoke it. As he spoke, Jada steadied herself, feeling the ground beneath her feet. Admiral, tell them this isn't just a protest. It's a moment for understanding. Her plea was raw, filled with emotion. It was a question, deep and trembling, could they really bridge this divide? From the crowd, a young girl stepped forward, clutching a stuffed bear. We just want our moms to be safe. Her voice was small, but resounded like a bell in the growing tension. That innocence was like a spark, igniting something within them. A ripple of agreement surged through the people. An old woman called out, we love our families. That's what matters. Others joined in, voices overlapping, building support across the square. Jada felt her heart swell. This was it. They weren't just fighting for her anymore, they were fighting for every child, every family that felt torn apart by fear and misunderstanding. Together, if we stand together, we can change everything, she shouted, feeling both terrified and exhilarated. Their chant grew loud, echoing off the buildings, filling the air of fresh resolve. But in the corner of her mind, doubt lurked. The officers were bracing, adjusting their stances, measuring their next move. Jada's breath caught. She was aware of the precarious balance they hung upon where compassion met the threat of force. Then, as if the world slowed, she caught sight of a young officer unsure, his eyes darting between the protesters and his commanding officer. There was a flicker of humanity there, a moment of connection. "Hey," Jada called, her voice steady. "You too. We're all in this together. You can help us." The officer hesitated, visibly torn. In that pause, Jada's heart beat faster than ever. It was a chance for connection. But would he choose courage over allegiance? The replies in the crowd swelled, the people hungry for dialogue, for unity, but would they find it at the edge of confrontation? Jada's hands trembled slightly, filled with a fierce hope, but the fear of escalation gnawed at the edges of her resolve. Would this moment fizzle into chaos, or crack open the door to transformation? And as the police advanced, her breath hitching, she couldn't escape the looming question: who would take the leap of faith? The silence was thick, hanging over the crowd like a heavy fog. Jada's eyes were locked onto the young officer, searching for signs of his decision. Would he step forward? Could he stand with them? Around her, the faces of the people were a mix of hope and anxiety. Each breath felt like a countdown to something monumental. The officer shifted, his brow furrowing as he took a step closer to the line of police. Jada felt her heart leap. "Please," she whispered, almost inaudibly, but the urgency behind her words was palpable. The crowd sensed the shift, their collective breath held tight in anticipation like a taut string about to snap. Just then, the commanding officer barked another order. "Stand down." I said move back. It was like a sharp knife cutting through the fragile moment, and Jada's stomach twisted. She could feel the fear pulsating through the crowd again, cracking that flicker of hope into a million pieces. "Wait," Jada urged again, her voice more desperate now. "We're not here to fight. We want to find a way forward." The young officer hesitated, his shoulders tensing. In that fleeting second, Jada could almost see the internal battle raging within him. She knew what he faced: loyalty to a badge he wore and the humanity of those standing before him. "Everyone," she shouted, lifting her voice above the tension. "We just want to be heard. Tell them what we want." A man in the front stepped up, his hands shaking slightly. "We want peace. We want to talk about our fears." Others chimed in, each voice a thread weaving the fabric of their shared story, vulnerabilities spilling out like the first drops of rain in a drought. From the rear, someone yelled, "They're people, just like us." That struck a chord, sending shivers through the crowd. Suddenly, voices began rising, telling stories of loss, of dreams shattered by fear, of children held tight at night while sirens blared in the distance. Each word was raw and real, every story building a bridge of empathy. Jada could see the officer's eyes flicker with something understanding maybe, or was it doubt? She thought about the risks they were all taking in this moment, mingling with the police, speaking truths instead of sharp words. Together, Jada cried, emboldened by the stories around her. "We can make this change happen." The words seemed to reverberate in the air, firing up the crowd again. The heaviness began to lift as they resumed their chanting, voices raising higher and higher, creating a wall of unity that wrapped around Jada's heart. She scanned the officers, hoping to see a crack in the icy facade shielding them. Gradually, the young officer stepped forward more definitively, no longer torn but resolute. "Let us talk," he shouted, surprising everyone, including his commanding officer. His words felt like a winter thaw, ushering in the first glimpses of spring, but as relief washed over the crowd, the commanding officer's frustration grew. "You're making a mistake," he barked, stepping closer, eyes narrowing as if trying to intimidate his own man into submission. "Maybe," the young officer replied, his voice steady despite the tension. "But change is needed, and I'm not afraid to be part of it." Their eyes met, and in that exchange, Jada felt a jolt of something electric potential. But the surrounding atmosphere was still charged with uncertainty. Would the officer's defiance trigger a larger confrontation? At that moment, Admiral Carter stepped forward again. With an imposing yet calm presence, he took a stance beside the young officer. "This is your chance to show that you believe in a better path for everyone here. We are all connected," he said firmly. Just then, a distant sound echoed through the air: a horn. Jada turned, confusion settling over her as she realized it was a vehicle approaching methodically behind them. An armored truck? What could that mean? As headlights sliced through the twilight, she felt the tension spike once more. The crowd grew silent, fear once again creeping into their hearts. Who were they bringing in now? Jada took a deep breath, prepared for whatever might follow, unaware that the moment was about to shift in ways she never imagined. What would emerge from that armored vehicle? And as the truck rolled closer, she could only wonder, was this the beginning of a new chapter, or was it just more conflict waiting to unfold? The armored truck rolled to a stop, the engine humming ominously as the headlights illuminated the anxious faces of the crowd. Jada tightened her grip on the banner in her hands, her heart racing. The muffled sounds of footsteps echoed from within the truck, and fear rippled through the onlookers like a cold wind. What do they want? Someone whispered nervously. Others exchanged worried glances, the fierce defiance that had filled the air moments before now mixing with uncertainty. That a heavy door creaked open, and a figure emerged, silhouetted against the twilight. Jada squinted, trying to make out what was happening. As the figure stepped into the light, recognition washed over her, sending jolts of shock through her. It was a woman, dressed in tactical gear, her face strong and resolute. For an instant, it felt surreal. She looked out at the crowd, her eyes sweeping over them as if searching for something grounding. Who is she? Someone murmured, breaking Jada's spell. That's Commander Lila Carter, another voice chimed in, the name sending shivers through the crowd. Admiral Carter's daughter. The young officer by Jada's side straightened, his expression shifting from determination to concern. Commander Carter exuded an air of authority that drew everyone's attention. The silence was palpable as she walked forward, each step measured but calm. We're all in this together, she began, her voice clear and strong, even in its low volume. I'm here to listen. We've brought people with us who are willing to talk. Jada felt a flicker of hope reignite in her chest. Could this be the moment they'd been waiting for? We want peace, she called out, her heart thudding with urgency. We need to be heard. Commander Carter nodded, her gaze shifting from Jada to the growing crowd. I hear you, she replied, and there was something in her tone that felt genuine. We've been on the other side of the line too. We see the pain, the fear, and we know change is needed. Just as the officer prepared to offer reassurance, the commanding officer stepped forward, fists clenched. This is unacceptable. You're all risking everything here. The tension boiled, thick and charged. No, Jada interjected, her voice gaining strength. What's unacceptable is silence. We can't keep pretending things are fine when they aren't. We want a dialogue. Commander Carter held up her hand, cutting through the rising emotions. We can only move forward if we speak to one another. Let's not allow past mistakes to dictate our future. The young officer exchanged a glance with Jada, and she could see the flicker of understanding in his eyes again, but the commanding officer was still looming. You don't know what you're asking for. It's dangerous. Jada's breath quickened, the stakes feeling higher. The crowd murmured, and she could feel the impossible weight of their collective hopes resting on her shoulders. We have to try? Isn't that worth the risk? Commander Carter stepped closer to Jada, keeping her voice low. You're right. It's time for change. But we also need to ensure the safety of everyone involved. Behind them, Jada caught a glimpse of movement, more officers moving nervously closer to the scene, their faces shadowed by internal conflict. The atmosphere felt like a tightly wound coil, ready to snap at any moment. Just then, someone from the back of the crowd shouted, "Don't back down." With that encouragement, Jada stepped forward. We want to share our stories, our fears. Let us speak. But before any response could come, the distant sound of shouting began rising again, swelling from behind the armored truck. Jada turned, her heart sinking as she realized the new wave of chaos headed their way. What had just begun to look like a breakthrough now felt like it could spiral into something even more dangerous. Would their moment of hope dissipate in the face of looming conflict? She felt dread pooling in her stomach, and she knew she'd have to act quickly. Would Commander Carter rise to the moment and side with them, or would she find herself caught in the crossfire of authority and desperate people? The crowd tensed, hearts racing, and Jada wondered what would the next move be. The shouting grew louder, blending into a cacophony of anger and fear. Jada could barely focus on the words. All she saw was movement, figures rushing closer, their intentions unknowable. Her hands trembled around the banner as adrenaline pumped through her veins. Behind the armored truck, a line of officers emerged, faces obscured by a mix of determination and anxiety. The tension shifted back to the crowd, escalating like a wave crashing ashore. Jada knew that one spark could ignite a wildfire of chaos. "Everyone stay calm." Commander Carter's voice rang out, cutting through the tumult. There was power in her words, but it felt fragile against the growing unrest. Jada's heart raced in her chest. She wanted to believe they could find peace, but the situation felt like a tightly wound spring, ready to explode as a figure broke through the crowd, pushing past the other protesters. It was a woman, her stance confident, carrying an aura of authority that mirrored Commander Carter's. Jada's breath caught as she recognized her. It was a SEAL sniper, known for her precision and bravery. The woman looked determined, even more than the others, her eyes fixed on the front line. "What are you doing?" Commander Carter asked, her voice firm, yet filled with concern. "I'm here to help," the sniper replied, her tone steady. "But this crowd needs to back down. They're escalating a situation that doesn't need to spiral. We need to listen." A riot was brewing. Jada took a step back, her heart racing. "We just want to talk," she shouted, her voice straining over the chaos. "We're not here to fight." But then, a shout erupted from the back of the line. "What are you hiding?" It was followed by a chorus of angry jeers and accusations that surged towards the officers. Jada felt the anger and fear creeping back in, the words resonating deep inside her. "Listen," Commander Carter called again. "We need to engage in dialogue, not violence." Her voice cracked slightly. Was it from fear or frustration? Whatever it was, it tugged at Jada. It reminded her how human everyone was, even those in power. "Lady, you can't just come here and expect us to believe you," someone in the crowd shouted, inciting a ripple of agreement. More voices joined, becoming a chorus of doubts. Jada's heart sank. What should she do? The crowd was becoming restless, the unity she had hoped for crumbling before her eyes. "Commander Carter, we can't let this fall apart. We must show them we're here for peace." Before she could finish, a loud crash echoed through the air. Jada whipped around to see a smoke bomb rolling into the crowd. The chaos unraveled instantly. People screamed, running in all directions, panic blooming like spring flowers. "Everyone down," Commander Carter shouted, her voice booming over the commotion. Jada's mind raced. "Follow me," the sniper yelled. "We have to exit this area." Jada felt the surge, the instinct to flee resonating through her. But she couldn't leave. She had to fight back against the fear that held so many in its grip. "No, stay together. We have to stand firm," she shouted as loud as she could. But as the crowd recoiled, she felt a tug at her side. The young officer grabbed her arm, his eyes wide. "We have to go, Jada. It's not safe." The urgency in his voice shattered her resolve. As they turned to run, she spared one last glance at Commander Carter, who was trying to rally the officers amidst the chaos. In a heartbeat, Jada felt the distance between them grow. Hope flickered in her chest, but so did fear. Would they find strength in unity when chaos threatened to tear them apart? What would it take to bridge the deepening divide? With the smoke rising behind her, Jada stumbled forward, but in that moment, she felt a familiar tug of an idea. What if the battle wasn't just outside, but within them all? As they darted away, the crowd's shouts echoed, but through it all Jada's resolve hardened. Would they find their voices amid the storm, or would silence win? Jada and the young officer weaved through the chaotic streets, dodging panicked bodies as the smoke hung thick in the air like a suffocating cloud. Every step felt heavy, as if uncertainty weighed down on her shoulders. She glanced over her shoulder, searching for any sign of Commander Carter or the sniper, but the figures blended into the stampede behind her. "Keep moving," the officer urged, his grip firm around her wrist, pulling her from the edge of the chaos. Despite the adrenaline coursing through her, Jada felt a tug in her chest, a fierce connection to the voices she had just left behind in the crowd. They were crying out for justice, for unity, and she had been part of that voice. Now, it all felt like a betrayal. Finally, they made it to a narrow alley, the world outside still thundering with fear and rage. Jada pressed her back against the cool brick, breathing deeply to clear her head. The officer stood guard, scanning the mouth of the alley, his youth contrasting sharply with the gravity of the moment. "Are you okay?" he asked, breathing fast, his eyes darting around. "I don't know," Jada replied, her voice shaking. "People are scared. They're hurting. It's just this was supposed to be a conversation, a chance to change things." The officer shook his head, frustration evident in his expression. But it turned into something else. "Look, we have to get out of here," before he trailed off, looking back towards the street. Before he could finish, the sound of sirens swelled in the distance, a haunting reminder that help was on the way for some and a deeper threat for others. Jada's heart pounded as she recalled the looks on the protesters' faces. Desperation, hope, fear. "Do you think they will listen now?" she asked, unable to hide the tremor in her voice. "Will they see what we stood for?" "I hope so," the officer replied, sincerity coloring his words. "But if we don't regroup, if we don't stay united, we might lose this chance. They need you." Jada took a deep breath, raising her chin slightly. "We have to find a way to come together again. We can't let this split us apart." The resolve in her voice surprised even her. "Then we need to get back out there," he said, determination flashing in his eyes. "We can't let the narrative be written by those who don't understand. We need to show them what we stand for." Just as they began to make a plan, the sound of shouting erupted from the street again, louder this time and filled with urgency. Jada peered around the corner and caught sight of the armored truck, now surrounded by reporters and protesters pushing against the police line. Suddenly, a figure appeared from the chaos, a woman in a military uniform. Jada's heart raced. It was the sniper, standing her ground, radiating defiance even in the face of fury. She was talking, her voice cutting through the pandemonium, steady and fierce. "I can't believe they are doing this." The officer gasped, scanning the scene as the sniper engaged with the police. "She's risking everything to get their attention." "Then let us do the same," Jada said, her mind igniting with purpose. "If they're going to clash, we need to be the bridge." Without waiting for a response, Jada stepped forward, the bubbling fear morphing into something unyielding within her. She could feel the fire in her heart leading her back into the fray. As they approached the edge of the alley, she turned to the officer. "Are you with me?" "Always," he said, determination shining in his gaze. They boldly stepped back into the chaos, ready to reclaim their voices amidst the rising tide of fear and anger. Jada's heart raced, each beat sinking with the surge of adrenaline. What if this was the moment they turned the tide? Would they stand as one, or would the barrier of misunderstanding drown their hopes? In that charged moment, as tension hung thick in the air, Jada felt the weight of history pressing upon her. Could they forge a new path in the face of chaos, or would fear win, only to leave shadows of silence behind? Jada stepped fully into the fray, her pulse echoing in her ears. The armored truck loomed ahead, a stark sentinel in a landscape of chaos. Around it, voices burst forth, shouts, cries, and the clashing of ideals flared. She felt the heat of their anger, their desperation. It was visceral and raw. "Jada, over here." The officer's voice pulled her back to focus. He was pointing toward a small group forming on a rise, with some protesters trying to make their way to the front lines. Jada nodded and pushed forward, each step resolute in its purpose. The sniper, the embodiment of defiance, was still locked in a verbal altercation, her calm demeanor contrasting sharply with the turmoil surrounding her. But all that mattered to Jada was the message they needed to get across. "The people need to see us together," Jada declared, her voice louder now, drawing the officer into her fervor. "They need to know we're not back downing. We're only getting louder." The officer pointed at the barricaded lines of police. "But there's no guarantee they'll listen, then we'll make them listen." The spark in Jada's chest ignited into a full flame. "We need to make our voices heard. Come on, we'll gather those who are ready to stand with us." As they moved, the crowd surged, a living entity wrapping them in an overwhelming tide. Jada could feel the shouts lifting her spirits, igniting the fire she had inside. It was a drumbeat of hope, each word a brushstroke in the mural they were painting together. The sniper turned, catching Jada's eye momentarily. Jada nodded, acknowledging their shared purpose. The sniper's lips curled into a determined smile, as if to say that they were all fighting for the same cause, unity and understanding. But then, from the side, a heavy shadow loomed. Police reinforcements arrived, tactical units piling into formation. The air crackled. Tension poured over the crowd like a sudden downpour. People began to push back in fear, anxiety rippling through their ranks. "Stay together," Jada shouted, gripping the officer's arm. "Don't let them intimidate us. We are the voice and the future." More protesters joined them, rallying behind Jada and the sniper, circling around defiantly. For a brief moment, they stood united, fists raised, a cacophony of passion and drive. The unyielding thrum of determination pulsed between them, suddenly becoming something tangible. But just as they began to regain their ground, a deafening explosion tore through the air. Gas canisters erupted just in front of them, hissing like angry serpents as the crowd gasped and recoiled. Panic set in, people cried out and stumbled back like fallen leaves in a storm. "Get down," the officer shouted, yanking Jada away just as chaos erupted in every direction. The once unified front was now splintering apart, fear driving wedges between them. Jada's heart raced, simply from the surge of adrenaline. She turned to the officer, her worry overshadowing their earlier resolve. "We can't let them split us. We have to show them we're not afraid." But the cries started to drown her out, the fear of being attacked overwhelming their need to stand tall. The sniper had fallen towards the ground, visibly shaken. Looking beyond the chaos, Jada felt the raw pulse of the crowd, their fear a much too familiar undercurrent. Could this be the moment they second-guessed everything they had stood for? Could they care enough to rise above the fraught moment should they need to? As she glanced back toward the militant row of police, she spotted something far in the distance, something coming their way fast, something important. A sleek black vehicle sped through the crowd. It bore a striking emblem that made her heart leap into her throat. Who were its occupants, and what were they prepared to do? Jada took a deep breath, grounding herself. "This isn't over," she whispered to herself, steeling her resolve. They couldn't let this be the end. In the heart of chaos and uncertainty, a new storm was brewing. She could only wonder what awaited them next. As the sleek black vehicle came to a screeching halt, a mix of anticipation and dread gripped the crowd. People stepped back, eyes on the door that swung open with a heavy thud. The tension thickened as a figure emerged, cutting through the chaos like a beacon of hope. It was Admiral Carter, flanked by Commander Lila Carter and a handful of deputies. "Everyone listen," Admiral Carter bellowed over the din, his voice a commanding presence in the fray. "We are not here to escalate. We are here to understand and to heal." The crowd hesitated, taken aback by the authority radiating from the Admiral. Jada felt the air shift, something that could either spell disaster or invite dialogue. She caught the young officer's gaze beside her. He looked equally anxious yet hopeful, clenching his jaw, ready to jump into action. Admiral Carter stepped forward, arms raised as a gesture of peace. "We can't let violence dictate our future. I am here to talk with all of you." His eyes scanned the group, locking on Jada, who had been silently advocating moments before. "Jada Macklin, you have been a voice of courage," he continued, stepping closer to her. "Please, speak for your community." Jada's heart thundered in her chest, but she forced herself to breathe deeply. This was why she fought. "Admiral," she said, stepping into the space created by the crowd shifting, "we are scared and tired of feeling unheard. We want change. We want to be seen as people, not just colors or stereotypes." Her words hung in the warm air, echoing across the frightened crowd. A murmur of agreement rippled through them, emboldening her. "I know," Admiral Carter replied, his voice low but powerful. "I see the pain, and I know how deep it runs. But change starts with conversation, understanding, and trust. I'm ready to offer that." The young officer felt a spark of determination ignite within him, fueling his courage. "And we need you to understand the fear on our streets, the stories that go unheard." He stepped forward, mirroring Jada's intensity. "It's about making sure our children feel safe, not just from what's outside, but from within." The crowd began to coalesce, their fear turning into solidarity as people shared snippets of their challenges, each voice threading a pattern of shared experience. And there was Jada, standing solidly at the forefront, her heart wide open. Commander Lila Carter took a step forward, her voice steady and soothing. "We know there's work to be done to bridge the gap between us. But that doesn't mean we have to start in conflict. If we come together today, right now, we can have this dialogue. Behind them, the smell of smoke began to disperse, giving way to whispers of hope as eyes began to glisten. One man, trembling yet resolute, took a step and shouted, "We want change. But we also want to feel safe. We need accountability on both sides." "Yes," echoed a woman beside him. "We are tired of fighting to be seen." In that moment, Jada felt a wave of empowerment wash over her like the sun breaking through storm clouds. This was the shift they had been yearning for, the chance to shape the narrative together. "All we ask," Jada added, voice steady and full of resolve, "is to be heard, to be respected as human beings who deserve the same safety as every other person in Maywood." Admiral Carter nodded, his expression fierce yet compassionate. "Then let us ensure these conversations continue beyond today. I propose we host community meetings, a safe space for dialogue." Cheering erupted unexpectedly, hearts racing with renewed purpose and contentment. Jada felt tears prick her eyes. This feeling was more than relief, it was empowerment, a community backing each other in their shared fight for justice. "Thank you," Jada spoke through her heartache, turned joy. "Thank you for not turning your back on us, for being willing to listen." Commander Lila stepped closer, placing a firm hand on Jada's shoulder, solidifying their renewed alliance. As the noise of support enveloped them, Jada realized that even amid confusion, there existed an unbreakable bond among the people of Maywood, woven together through shared stories and struggles. The sirens diminished, their menace fading into the backdrop. Together, under the warm glow of the evening sun, they had turned the tide. With hands held high and voices united, they were ready to reclaim their town. And as Jada looked around, she knew the fight for justice had begun a new chapter. Together, they would rise. And together, they would heal. Now, let this transformative moment echo far beyond the streets of Maywood. Join us on this journey. You need to subscribe now and not miss the next powerful stories we'll share. Leave a like to keep the energy flowing and ensure this message spreads. Comment your feelings about this powerful ending. We want to hear from you. Don't wait, not even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this change and hope. Let us ignite transformation together.